Have you seen Rocky 4? If you did, you probably hated Ivan Drago, the Russian punching machine with the same expression throughout the whole movie. But the question is, why did we hate him? I mean, he did exactly what any boxer would do. Mike Tyson has munched Holyfield's ear and no one hated him for it. Yeah, he may overdid it and destroyed Rocky, but that's not really a good reason for all this hatred. And I know you're not convinced, my friend. It was simply because that's how the enemy looked like back then. And if you're wondering what enemy I'm talking about, it was prime Cold War. It was Russia. But the most important question is, why a sports movie? I mean, isn't sports about sportsmanship and the guy in front of you is your rival, your adversary, but not your enemy? The great English author, George Orwell, whom I like very much by the way, stated in an article that was published in the Tribune magazine in 1945, and I quote, "On the village green, where you pick up sides and no feeling of local patriotism is involved, it is possible to play for the fun and exercise. But as soon as the question of prestige arises, as soon as you feel that you and some larger unit will be disgraced if you lose, the most savage combative instincts are aroused." In other words, if you're looking for sportsmanship, you can find it in the Sunday League or in a game with your friends and cousins. But as soon as the team represents an identity, as soon as it becomes a matter of honor, you get your people, I'll get my people, and we'll see who wins, who laughs, who cries, who will triumph, who will be broken and humiliated, and in some cases, who lives or dies. Most sports were played with this mentality up until the 1990s. It was more like an athletic arms race than entertainment. This phenomenon was known as the Patriot Games. And before you accuse me of being a drama queen, let's take a look at our best example. Football. Well, real football, not American football. I actually have no idea why they call it football. They don't play it by the foot and it doesn't look like a ball. Football was the most notorious sport before it becomes the football that we know now. It was prohibited from the 14th to the 19th century because it was so violent. This violence goes back to the nature of the game and the mindset of the players. Also, there weren't 22 players on the pitch like now. Instead, there were 220 players on each team. Each team consisted of the village's men and women. Yeah, they kind of had equality in the Middle Ages. I bet feminists right now are taking notes to compare now and then. Don't get too excited. They weren't exactly like women nowadays. A cute girl with a Snapchat filter would be a snack back then. Simply because beauty standards meant that you're married to Dwayne Johnson with a supermodel face. The idea was for any team to score the ball at the center of the other team's village by any means necessary. No, don't even think about it. I know you're thinking throwing the ball in the center of that village. Don't. Simply because A, the pitch was the distance between the two villages, and B, they didn't actually use a Nike ball. They used a very heavy sphere. And if you're wondering where did they use the feet in this game, it was simply for kicking each other, which led to injuries, sometimes death, revenge, and war. And that's why King Edward III made the game punishable by law. And the church in France took a similar action to forbid the game and stated, "Football encourages envy and hatred." Reality was even worse, to the point that, you know what? Enough with the Middle Ages, let's just move on. In 1863, Dark Ages for football came to an end when the English Football Association was founded. Football became organized, and what made it even more popular is the formation of FIFA. FIFA made the game a sort of an international competition, as if the early 1900s needed any more competition. However, that didn't change the fact that people within one city hated each other for this game. In some cases, football represented a symbolic fight between religions, social classes, and sometimes revolutions against tyranny. Take a look at this. The Old Firm Derby in Scotland between Rangers, the Protestants, and Celtic, the Catholics. Or El Super Clásico in Argentina between Boca Juniors, the poor working class club, versus River Plate, Los Millonarios, the millionaires. The fans of this derby are so passionate that it was named the #1 on the top 50 sporting things to do by the Observer newspaper. Oh! And I almost forgot, El Clásico between Real Madrid, the Capitals Club, versus Barcelona, the Catalan revolutionaries fighting for their independence. George Orwell described these symbolic battles. It is war, minus the shooting. Or would it actually include the shooting? And please don't be harsh on me and call me a jinx. Are you calling me a jinx? Rude? You know what? I'ma head out. In 1969, and due to 3 football games, many people were killed, injured, or became refugees. El Salvador was a geographically small country with a population of 3 million people. Unlike Honduras, which was 5 times larger, with a smaller population of 2.3 million people. Salvadorans used to go to Honduras to work in their farms. That's irrelevant. But hold the thought. Both countries met in the World Cup qualifiers that was going to be in Mexico in 1970. The first match was in Honduras, and the hosts won by a last-minute goal. The Salvadorans blamed the Hondurans for the loss of the game because of the noise that was made under their players' hotel, which prevented them from sleeping. The scene was so intense that an 18-year-old girl, Emilia Bolanos, took her own life because she couldn't bear the shame of watching her national team lose. Salvadorans decided to take revenge, not only by making noise under the hotel of the Honduran players, but to throw filth and pig heads. Take it easy, it's just a game. And in the match, they raised a torn white flag instead of the Honduran flag during the national anthem. Dun 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 da. Lucky for the guests, they lost 3-0. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gotten out alive. It's just a game! The final game was in Mexico, and the series were tied, and the Salvadoran won 3-2. And right after the match, they cut diplomatic ties and declared war on Honduras. Aerial bombardments on airports, and the tanks reached the capital of Honduras. Hondurans responded by striking oil wells and military bases in Salvador. The war came to an end on July the 18th after 4 days of open conflict. And pressure from the OAS, Organization of American States, managed to cease fire. The OAS held a summit and said, "Come on guys, it's just World Cup playoffs." They actually said that. I was there. Maybe the 3 games were the spark of the war. But remember the thought I told you to hold? The war was actually about the mistreatment of the Salvadoran farmers in Honduras. The Honduran corrupt president, Oswaldo Lopez Arellano, sold the fruit crops for the American companies for very cheap price, almost for free. And to protect himself, he used the Salvadoran immigrants as a scapegoat. Pretty sure it rings a bell, if you know what I mean. The results were devastating. 3,000 people dead, mostly Hondurans, 15,000 injured, and over 300,000 refugees. It's getting depressing in here. Wars and violence. What happened to 22 players running behind the ball? Oh, hold your horses. What are you talking about? I did not give you the bad news to get your attention. No, that's a false claim. I gave you the misery in the beginning so you can feel the happy ending and see that fairy tales actually exist. As football started one war, it helped ending many wars. In 2005, Ivory Coast was living a devastating civil war that lasted for 4 years. After beating Sudan and qualifying for the World Cup, Didier Drogba, who was the captain for the Ivory Coast team, spoke to the camera begging his people to stop the war. And guess what? The war immediately stopped and the country had peaceful elections. And if you thought that this was the best thing that could happen, oh boy, it only gets better. In 1954 World Cup final, yeah, World Cup again. This competition is a huge magnet for action and drama. Hungary, the super team that was undefeated for the last 4 years, versus West Germany, a team that didn't even exist in the last 4 years. The referee blew his whistle and the game began. 6 minutes into the game and boom! 1-0 Hungary. 2 minutes later and bam! Second goal for the super team. The Hungarians were about to crush the Germans once again, like they did in the group stage, with an 8 goals win. The German people were shattered, as if losing World War II wasn't enough. But lucky for the Germans, it was rainy and muddy. Not a good coach? Players? Plot twist, they had the new Adidas boots. Adaptable to any weather. 10th minute and voila! First goal for the Germans. And against all odds, Germans won 3-2. Oh my god! The defeated nation became victorious. These boots were the adrenaline shot in the heart of the German industry. Everyone wanted these boots that withstood any weather. And for Adidas, business was booming. And this match marked the rebirth of the post-war German nation. What a happy ending! Fairy tales do exist, and now they feel better. See? I told you! Ladies and gentlemen, sport is a tool that can be used to build or destroy, but it all depends on the way you see it. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Can you see it? Can you see subscribe? Right there. And take a look at the references in the bottom, in the description. No, right there in the description. In the description.